Oh, there we go. I just got the announcement. Okay. The computer voice says, okay. Great. Well, welcome everybody to the March 13th meeting of the Design Advisory Panel. And just a reminder, we are recording and live streaming for the public, so keep that in mind. We will call the meeting to order and got adoption of the agenda. Any issues with any additions to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, can I have a motion to accept the agenda as presented? Okay, Jonathan, seconder Harry, all in favor? Great, excellent. Okay, and we've got the minutes from February 27th to approve. There's one correction that was noted. Jonathan Benke's name was spelt wrong, so that'll be corrected in the next iteration. So if we could have an approval with that correction. Somebody want to motion? Harry, seconder Jonathan, good. And all in favor? Great. Okay, thank you. So we have two presentations this evening, and the first one is for property on Barrington Road, and planner Peyton Carter will introduce it. Go ahead, Peyton.
Perfect. Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, everybody. Development permit application number DP1372 is a development permit to construct a four-story multifamily residential development with 102 rental units, complete with 2 additional stories of underbuilding parking. The subject property is an irregularly shaped lot located in the Lindley Valley neighborhood, and the land was rezoned in 2022 from low-density residential R6 to medium-density residential R8. The subject property falls within Development Permit Area 1, our environmentally sensitive areas, Development Permit Area 6, the Steep Slope Development Permit Area, and Development Permit Area 8, our Form and Character Development Permit Area. As such, the Steep Slope Development Permit Area guidelines and the General Development Permit Area guidelines apply to this development. There is a variance requested to increase the maximum allowable building height from 14 meters to 16.5 meters. I'm happy to take any questions from the panel following the applicant's presentation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great, thanks, Peyton. And who will be presenting this evening?
I'll be presenting. We're just actually waiting for, I'm Paul Copeman, DHK Architects. We're
Okay.
just waiting for a couple of our consultants to join the meeting. I can start if
Well,
that's
Paul, I think we should just get going if there you go, Glenn's with us. So
Yeah, the link wasn't working. Sorry, guys.
You got
okay.
everybody then? Okay, so whenever you're ready, just share your screen. Go ahead. Thanks.
Glenn, do you want to start us off, or would you like me to start?
Yeah, I could do a real quick thing. So
Sure.
just really quick, kind of a little bit about Highland Properties. We are a development company that is basically commenced around the generous donation of one man to MCC, the charity. He donated $249 million of land and buildings to the charity, such that all of our net profits go back to the charity to use in places all over the world. We've been to Kenya, Uganda. Recently, our team went to kind of see what we're doing out there, building schools for kids, health centers for girls, washrooms separating girls from guys because it's a big thing. They don't have that out there, and so that's kind of what we are. We do this. We don't do this to fatten our pockets. We do this to basically uh, provide net income back to the charity. Just this year, we donated back $8.2 million to the charity, and that's kind of what our basis for our work is. So we're a bit of a unique development company from the typical ones out there. So just a little bit of who we are.
Okay, great. I think what I'll do is I'll just share my screen here. You guys seeing this?
Not yet. There we go.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. Okay, well, hi everyone. I'm Paul Copeman. I'm the architect from DHK, and we've been working with the Highland Group over several months developing this project, and we're very pleased to be presenting our work to you today. The building is a 4-story wood structure on top of 2 stories of concrete that will house our parking. The building is designed to accommodate 102 new rental homes with a very varied sizes of units from a studio to a 1 bed plus den, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedroom units. We also have 6 wheelchair accessible units on the site. In that mix, we have 3 amenity rooms, common spaces located within the building, and we also have an exterior amenity space on the property. Generally speaking, our site approach and building design approach has been to design a building that will fit in with the existing landscape, and one that is positioned in a way to minimize excavation and site disturbance. So this is the exterior of the building. I will return to it in more detail. The site. These are some images of the site. Now the site aerial plan is in the center of this image. And the site is quite a special site from the point of view of that it's been relatively untouched by development, and it has an abundance of trees and exposed rock. It's quite hilly, and I mean, from a personal point of view, as an architect, these sort of sites are rare to develop on. So this is quite a special site for me, and I think for the project team. The site is also bordered by a wetland, and there are some public trails that run around and through the site. And the neighboring sort of urban context is largely single-family homes and some multifamily dwellings across the street and in the general vicinity. So this is the view from Barrington Road as it exists today. It has this large rock outcropping feature, and our plan is to maintain as much of this rock as possible and locate our site access point in the low point of the rock, which is roughly in this area where the site sign and utility pole is located. So these are just some diagrams that illustrate how the building will be positioned on the land. We have set the building a ways back from Barrington Road, and there's a couple of reasons why we did this. The first one is to create separation between our development and Barrington Road to minimize the impact of it, but also because at this point in the site there's a drop off in the topography, so it was a really good area for us to locate our building so that we could position the parkade areas, the 2 stories below grade, and have the first floor level of the wood structure be roughly parallel and level with the existing grade, so that from the approach to the building and from Barrington Road, the building will appear to be a 4-story building, not a 6-story building. And you can sort of see here in this image how the building will appear from the road with the retention of the rock outcropping near Barrington Road. So this is our site plan. As I mentioned, our primary access will be off of Barrington Road, located in this low point in the topography. The access to our parking will follow the easterly parallel to the eastern property line, and also does a bit of a curve in the road as we enter the site in order to create additional distance between our neighbors to the east. We also have a pedestrian connection from Barrington Road to the front door. And I think here is a good time to just point out some of the features of the building. It is a fairly linear building in plan, but we do have an accentuation of the building form in the center, where the building's mass will project out to announce the entrance on the north side, sorry, on the south side, and also on the north side to announce what we're calling a forest lobby, the secondary entrance from the north and the trail systems on the north. We are meeting all of our parking requirements as per zoning bylaw, and we are providing bike parking in both the primary lobby as well as on the forest lobby side as well. So just maybe going back to the architecture itself, the style of architecture that we've chosen is modern, and more specifically follows West Coast modern a type, and some of the features of that style of architecture are large roof overhangs, use of timber in the design, an emphasis on horizontality, use of large windows, and a strong connection between the indoors of the building and the outdoors. These are some images of the building from various sides and angles. This top one is the building from the street, and these this side is from the north side facing the forest. And I think the key difference, and this is also again the north side, showing this projection of the building form with our forest lobby at the base of that, with adjacent amenity space beside that. So one of the key strategies that we've used on this project is the balconies. We have, because the very natural and wooded environment that we find ourselves in, we've decided to use very large balconies, continuous balconies facing the forest, where views to the wetlands will be uninterrupted. We've also provided on this side doors which can access those balconies and really create a continuous indoor and outdoor space between the units and that balcony, thereby creating sort of really an extension of that living space. On the north, on the south side of the building, which faces the street, we've employed inset balconies to create additional privacy from the road and from this forecourt that we're proposing. Also on our south side, we have what is called an active ground floor, where the units at the base will have front doors, so that residents and visitors can come right up to a unit's front door, thereby creating an active ground floor that is according to current best practices for urban design. In terms of the materiality of the exterior of the building, we've chosen simple and very durable materials. We have chosen a color palette that is very much an earth tone color palette of dark browns, tans, and grays that we believe will fit well into this the natural environment. The primary building material, I guess, that we are using is a cement board and batten, which is the dark gray, the dark brown, and then around the entrance, both the north side and then the south side here, we have an accent cement board material texture, which is tan. And also we've employed heavy timber structure for the columns of the balconies as well as the entrance feature. On the south side, on the north side of the building, where the parquet becomes exposed, we have exposed concrete, as well as a slatted aluminum slat, which provides ventilation naturally for the parquet, as well as provides visual interest and additional texture. So I think that concludes the, oh, not quite. I should point out that the additional height that we are requesting as part of our variance is 1.5 meters, as Peyton had mentioned. And the red line shows the allowable height by zoning, and the 1.5 meter is our additional height that we're requesting. So I think at this point, I'd like to pass it over to our civil engineer, who is Ian Bauer. I believe Ian is here. I will stop sharing. Is Ian in the house?
I am.
Okay. So I'm stopping sharing, and it's over to you, Ian.
Okay. Okay, now I can share. Okay, yeah, as Paul mentioned, I'm Ian Bell from Herald Engineering. We're doing the civil. As I guess Paul did a pretty good job of explaining the site and how we're trying to work around the rock outcroppings. We'll add that the ground floor of the building is approximately 1.5 meters higher than Barrington Road. So we're trying to keep a less than 5% grade up the front to the building, to the along the path of travel. So we've got the main parking area out front, and then there's access to the first parkade, and then carrying on down a little bit further, there's a lower parkade around the side of the building. From the servicing point of view, there's already an existing water service out on Barrington, so we'll just connect to that. We're adding a hydrant. Water meter, carry the service on to the building. We're going to add a remote hydrant out in the parking area, so we're within 45 meters of the hydrant. Sanitary service, there is an existing stub on Barrington, so we're going to use that, carry that on into the building. Stormwater, there isn't really a storm on Barrington to speak of, so we're going to be draining towards the north side of the building. The parking area will be captured. There'll be treatment. Then there's a flow control manhole. Then that'll be directed around the building. The building itself, there's the roof leaders will be discharged to this rock pit, which is incorporated behind the retaining walls at the back of the building. So there's a lot of storage back there that water will percolate through, and then there's several or multiple outlets along the front of the retaining wall, so that it'll try and mimic the existing conditions as close as we can, and it will just discharge to the wetland. That's about it for the civil overview.
Okay, maybe is Chris
Here.
here? Okay, super.
And I'd like to share my screen as well, if I may, if I'll just go ahead and do that.
You go ahead. Thanks.
Okay, everyone can see that?
There we go. Yep.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So thank you. My name is Chris Midgley. I'm with Kinship Design Art Ecology. Kate Stefuk is my partner, and she's not available here today, but I'm happy to present our project here for the Silva project. This image that you see is basically our landscape plan. So I'll be as brief as I can in the interest of time, but our approach has been to draw whatever inspiration we can from the dramatic natural character of the site. With Paul's photos showed you a general character of the rocky outcroppings and the mossy understory and the tree nature of the site. So that's very reflective of the coastal Douglas fir ecosystem, and we're trying to amplify that as we go forward. So what you see here in this diagram is really how much of the site is going to be retained as natural a condition as we can. There's a wetland offsite here, which the setback extends onto the parcel, and a smaller wetland here to the west of the buildings, which also is a protected site. And so beyond that, we're also proposing a tree retention area just to keep it as to create this contrast of a contemporary architectural feature within a immersion in a natural forested landscape. The parcel itself is, I believe, 1.53 hectares. So in terms of the number of trees that we need to replace that with, it would be about 153. We're actually proposing 163 trees, depending on what we can fit in post-construction, where we can rehabilitate, and how that will all fit together. Looking more closely at some of these elements, this area immediately surrounding the building, we're calling a forest understory planting, where we would really accentuate that coastal Douglas fir ecosystem as a transition to the architecture from a forested environment. Your package has our planting plans and so forth. So unless there's specific questions, I'll avoid getting into too much detail on the plants, other than to say it's very much a naturalized landscape in the rear of the buildings. The front, as Paul showed you as well, the patios at each ground-oriented unit is more of a complementary mix of indigenous and ornamental species that provide attraction for beneficial insects, butterflies, bees, as well as birds and that sort of thing. There's a dramatic rocky outcropping at the front of the building, as Paul described, but we're also that character is consistent throughout the site, and we're trying to keep that and amplify that however we can. I'll zoom in a little bit here if I can. So Paul did talk about the forest lobby. So again, we're trying to create this unique contrast between a very refined architectural environment and a very naturalized, immersed in forest environment. So it's a social gathering place. It's partially covered, partially open, and really trying to feel this transition as you move into the forest. One of the interesting and fun features that we would have are these really extra long kind of timber benches that just, I think, are visually interesting and provide a nice gathering space where you're situated in the forest. And again, looking closer in at the entry plaza again, these are connecting to pedestrian walkways that connect to all the ground-oriented units, and take on an interesting character to the west side of the building where that rocky outcropping meets. And I think we've managed to create something that has quite an interesting visual character moving across that front facade behind the major rocky outcropping at the front of the building. Looking at thinking on, I think Peyton also did a good job of describing the overall character in her design report. There were a couple of comments in there that I wanted to speak to specifically. One was around bike racks. There's no real bike route to the rear, so that's why we opted to include those more toward that front plaza area where you would ride up and see meet up with your friends in the building. More importantly, there's a comment on the screening of the parkade kind of structure in the rear with perhaps some green wall features. And we didn't have a section in our pack or elevation in our package, and I think we put this together here to better illustrate that character in the rear. So we've specifically oriented the plantings and the trees to really screen those more significant walls, and so that I think this does a decent job at showing how that screening is captured, how you feel that immersion in a naturalized landscape, how some of those rocky outcroppings might be protected or preserved or amplified. So it's also, I think, the tree proposals that we provide. We'd rather see the developer spend the money on the trees than on a green wall system, which is really quite an expensive system, and it offers less biodiversity value and less sort of oxygen, if you will, to this site. And just to further emphasize that there's a wetland on this side, so we're not really, there's no people that we're trying to screen the view from, but would prefer again to really strengthen that forest character. And I think that this section shows how we're achieving that a little bit better. So you can see in the bottom right of the page here where we're showing that section through, just a half the building to really illustrate that character. As Ian suggested, we are able to, I like to think of it as green infrastructure, not merely a rock pit, Ian, but it's going to be a fairly lush planting with, again, indigenous understory species, shrubs like ocean spray, evergreen huckleberry, those standard kinds of indigenous species that we see here. I think I'll leave it at that for the moment, but we'd be happy to answer any questions. And like I said, thank you for having us, and I think we really enjoyed working on the project. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll stop sharing. Sorry, yes, of course. Well, where am I going to do that? Nope, that's not the right one. Sorry, I apologize. Where do I stop the sharing?
So this, once Chris can close his window, this will be the end of our presentation. So thank you.
Did
Okay.
that? Oh, there we go. Sorry about that.
Figured it out. Okay. Well, thanks for that. That's good. So before we get going, do any of the panel members have questions of staff for this project? Okay, seeing none. I do have just one question. I'd kind of like something clarified. I was looking at where the driveway comes in along close to the neighboring property, and maybe it's my ability to read the plans, but I couldn't really make out, is there a retaining wall along there? Is there rock? What's kind of just a fence? What's shielding the lights of the vehicles going by there from the neighboring property?
The driveway will be there will be, because it's solid rock there, where we've got it set back from the property line, and there will be a fairly steep cut down to where the driveway occurs. On the top of that, on the top of the bank, we'll have a new fence that will run across the neighbor's property.
Okay.
Yeah, the house grade is substantially higher than the driveway grade, so they're way above, so no lights will ever get up there.
Okay, that's what I
The
was,
the lights will shine into the side of the wall there, basically. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I was hoping. Okay, that was just, I was having a hard time sort of figuring that out from the plans,
Yep.
so thank you. Okay, let's see, who would like to go here? Let's, perhaps Hector, you'd like to start off?
Sure. Thanks, Madam Chair. No, lovely project. I love it. I think that area of the city is beautiful. It's one of my favorite areas in Nanaimo. I think the project makes justice to bring some good density into that area. I love how you are doing like some amenity spaces on the parkade and connecting it to the exterior and the wetlands. I think it's very, very, very well done. I don't have issues with the variance. And one of the kind of comments that I saw from the city was the concrete, the exposed concrete podium. I know it's kind of I appreciate that the landscape architect did a little bit of a rendering, because I think that really explains how probably it's gonna get covered by the forest. And I think as long as the builder makes a nice job with doing a nice architectural concrete finish on that, it's gonna look awesome. It's maybe very ad hoc, a little bit brutalist with the modern building on top of this podium. So yeah, I guess I don't really have any comments, but good luck with the project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Hector. How about you, Angie? Go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, I would just echo that. Yeah, thanks for the presentation, and I think it was really helpful to see those renderings of that backside as well. I really like the overall color scheme here, and just how it ties into the landscape. I think the private balconies are done really well to create some private space there and good weather coverage. The wood slats are a really nice accent as well. I think, yeah, overall, I think it looks like a really great project. My only comments for considerations were potentially adding like a bicycle maintenance area within the building. And then also just given the foliage around, consider bird-friendly design for the glazing as well at that foliage level. But otherwise, yeah, I think it's a a really great project. I was curious. I didn't see a refuse area, and I might have missed it on the plans. But what is the plan for yeah, garbage recycling,
You want to
compost?
take that, Paul? Yep.
Sure. Yeah, we've located the garbage collection in the parkade in an area. So smaller trucks will drive right in, collect the garbage and come out again.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a dog wash and a bike wash and bike repair area in the building as well too.
Oh, super. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. That's great to hear. Yeah, well, that's everything from my end. Thanks a lot
Cool.
for the information.
Great, thanks, Angie. Alex, would you like to go?
Sure. I guess, yeah, my first question is just the street facing side. It looks like the building is within that setback of the neighboring property. I'm just wondering, could you clarify so there's no variance requested for that?
No, there's no variance in any of our setbacks. We're all within our setbacks.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the drawing I'm looking at, like the setback is in the building.
Which drawing are you in?
So,
Oh, you're looking at I think he's looking at the south side, west
Yeah.
end where it kind of peaks. I think there's a setback line there. Yeah.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the building face is north of the setback line. It's close to it, but it's within that setback. We have though maybe what you're looking at is the walkways, but the building face is within that setback.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like the corner might just come to the front of the building there. Okay, so thanks for clarifying.
Did you have more to say, Alex? You turned your mic off.
Sorry about that. That was accidental. I like the design. It's modern and like Hector said, it's kind of got a brutalist vibe. I like how you have access to the ground floor units. I think that's a nice element to have. And I do see that your trails, they do connect to the neighboring trails. So that's good. So yeah, I guess the only perhaps critique I could have, and I guess it's a subjective critique, is color palette. I think it's nice. It does blend in nice with the scenery. I just would personally like to see like little maybe pops of color here and there. But I suppose that could be achieved with landscaping. But yeah, that's all I have.
Great, thanks, Alex. Hillary, would you like to go?
Sure. Yeah, I really like the project overall. I think it's ties in really nicely to the forest, obviously. The design, I really like it. Like how you've oriented the balconies. The 6 wheelchair accessible units is really nice to see. I'm assuming you have corresponding accessible parking stalls to make that happen. Especially with like the vans that have like the side entry for wheelchairs. So like the accessible parking spot that has the drive aisle on the side, or the sort of, yeah.
Correct, we do.
Awesome. And yeah, no, other than that, I really don't have anything to add. I think it's a really nice looking project and appreciate it.
Just one note, Hillary, as well. We're going to be working with, his name has escaped me. Oh, the gentleman that went across Canada. Yeah, it's Rick Hansen. We're going to be working with the Rick Hansen Association in communication with the accessible units. We've just never seen anybody out there in the market for rental apartments making accessible units, not just adaptable, accessible units. So we are excited about that because I think it just, why should we just make units for able-bodied people in the beautiful outdoors when we can make them for people that need that additional bit of help? And so we're quite excited about that. It was my initiative with the company. Is I said it's not a marketing ploy. This is something that's important because we have several people in our office who actually have either partially disabled or fully disabled relatives. So it's a big thing for us. I appreciate your comments on that. Thank you.
Well, thank you. As the chair of our accessibility committee, that's something we really like to see. And yeah, also note that you included the bike wash and the dog wash. That's that's a really nice feature to have. So thank you for that.
Great, thanks, Hillary. Who else? Marta, would you like to go ahead?
Sure, yeah. I really think this is a very thoughtful project sorry, yes, this is a very thoughtful project on a very complex and beautiful site, just staggering. And the photos really don't do it justice. It's gorgeous. And I love the way you handled the driveway, and it's on the flatter part of the site and reaching back around that giant rock and the trees and keeping some of those trees is wonderful. I have no issue with the 2.5 meter variance in order to have the parking below the building and have green space that's needed, and the way you have pushed the facade at the north end of the site in and out to give a little bit of variability and use the aluminum wooden kind of looking slats for ventilation and to give some of that is really smart. I would love to see some more of those on the east and west facade, just to maybe add a little bit of variability to those two sides and to help manage light from east and west, because it can be a little bit tricky to deal with. But that's just a personal opinion. The development itself is about a 30-minute walk to the closest 7-Eleven. It's really kind of remote for walking, so it's wonderful that it's integrated into the walking paths. The amenity spaces it's good to have. It would be nice if they were bigger, but maybe I didn't see them in plan in their full size. There's one that I missed. And yeah, I really, really liked it. The front entry and the back entry, it's very clear where it is, so that's good. Just as in my mind, when I look at the front facade as you come in, there seems to be a bit of a little bit of a conflict between the main entry and the canopy that kind of hangs past it. They're just slightly different, and maybe just to look at it again, I feel like it's such a modern building, and the little overhang that extends past that front facade maybe just adds a little bit of just isn't quite as modern. But otherwise, it's a wonderful project and very thoughtfully put together. Thank you.
Thanks, Marta. And Harry? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, this looks really nice. The questions that I did have about the concrete wall on the north side was answered in the presentation, so I think the other panel members were concerned about that too. Other than that, I have no other comments. It's a really nice project. It looks great. I do like the color palette. I don't think it needs any changes. Yeah, looks good. Thank you.
Thanks, Harry. And Jonathan?
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I really like the project. I think all my typical comments are kind of already addressed, so that was the designer and the developer, I think, have demonstrated that they really care about what they're doing, and that's good to see. The site design is really sensitive to the context. It seems really well thought out to me. The building design I really like. Often I ask for color, but a pop of color, but I think in this situation I wouldn't suggest that. The building's kind of tucked away from the street and it's in this natural environment. I think adding more color would take away from that, and it's not. And I would maybe, yeah, color is more for a more urban context. I think the color palette here works really well, having it more muted earth tones. The landscape, I also really like the use of the boulder retaining walls in the steep slope area is good. And a good focus on a lot of native plant species, especially on the north Lindley Valley side. Yeah, I think it's really well thought out. I like how there's the ground floor units have pathways directly accessible to the outdoor on the south side. I'm wondering about the ground floor units on the north side. I guess on the yeah, I was checking to see if north was up on this drawing. Yeah, on the, I guess the west, there's kind of a retaining wall close to the ground floor balconies. I'm wondering, like, can people on the ground floor like walk out into that forest area, or I guess a question for the designer. Can the ground floor?
I guess the answer is no. At that point, we have an exit out of our staircase coming down there, and we elected to not have people go down that steep. It's quite a steep slope at that point. So right now it's not accessible to the trails at that point.
So the ground floor units on the north side, they have balconies though, or like patios, I guess.
Yes.
And then, okay. And I guess is there like it slopes up from the grade slopes up from their patios, or?
So on the north, essentially all the units would be elevated, like as they face the forest.
Okay, so the ground floor patio is elevated.
The ground floor patios are all face the south, which will be on grade, so facing the street.
But I guess on the north side are the ground floor patios?
Yeah, so the ground floor patio would be a public patio. So do you want me to share screen again?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so this is the south side, showing the ground floor patio. So at this point, all the way along the length, the grade is level with that first floor, and then as we go to the north, these units are elevated, above. This is where our ground floor drops off. And then our public amenity space exists on this level where the people are. So our amenity spaces are 1, 2, 3 here. And so that's the access point to the forest.
Okay, yeah, thanks. That's good. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. The exposed concrete, I think it's okay in this situation. It's not really visible to the street. So there's not like a lot of overlook of that concrete, and a green wall. I don't have much experience with green walls, but I don't know how well the native species would do in there, and I wouldn't want to suggest like exotic species being added in a green wall. on that side of the building. So I think the concrete's fine. Maybe a pattern could be added to the concrete that, as long as it complements the rest of the building form, but I think it's okay. Some of the forest lobby area, I like those long benches. I was just thinking maybe like some tables might be nice in there, so some additional site furnishings. That's really my only suggestion. Everything else looks pretty good, so thank you.
Okay, I think that's the whole panel there, and so my turn, and I really don't have a lot to add here. Really appreciate a very thoughtful project and a lovely design. It's so nice to see projects like this where that kind of sort of holistic approach is taken, and there's thought put into it for who's living there and how they live in the space. So I really appreciate that. Love the way that you've added accessible units. Again, that's a rare thing that we see here, and really appreciate that as well. And also the attention to sort of fitting the building design into the environment as a whole, as well as the landscape design is just lovely. It's very, you know, thoughtfully integrated into the landscape as well. So really appreciate that. I think the only two things I have is probably more questions or comments on. Just wondering if you were considering a children's play area in there. I didn't see any mention of that, and if so, why there isn't one? Rationale on that, Chris? Maybe you could answer that.
Sure, I'd be happy to answer. So I suppose from our perspective, I think the opportunities for play would be in the landscape itself, in that sort of the wild play side of things, rather than introducing constructed or rubber elements. You know what I mean? It just felt like there's some real good opportunities for kids to feel that natural play. There's a little wetland they might explore off to the side. I mean, I know you're not allowed, but hey, I'm not going to stop anybody. And similarly to the, I mean, it's just a really kind of a little gem within the city, you know, where instead of swings and like rubber matting, we've got actually a natural play space, the whole site effectively.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my rationale.
Okay.
You can get the kids doing some bouldering.
I thought
Yeah,
that might be
I mean-
climbing on the boulders and yeah, no,
Exactly. Yeah.
I know that sort of in the mossy, if we have the mossy boulders as a kid, I remember playing on those. It was
And
fun.
you know, through construction, there we can explore options for leaving some logs on site, for example. That's what boulders, and so these can create not dedicated play, but elements that are playful.
Yeah, I'm thinking more that would fit in well there. Something on a more natural, like little, like stumps that could either be seating or just things kid can climb up and down and jump one from the other, that kind of thing. So it's
Mhm, yeah.
just where it's safe to play a little bit. Yeah. So that might consider that. Now, we've had a lot of discussion about those concrete walls in the back, and when I looked at the designs, my first take was I look at it sort of visually and how it all goes together, and I can sort of see why everybody's pointing it out. You've got this white surface up against the other colors, and it's a huge white surface, and it seems to keep coming up. And I'm just wondering if you considered at all changing the color of that. For example, you have the tan highlights on the front on those pieces that project out on the front facade. What about that? That tan color, because it would actually draw your eye away from it, because it's white and it stands out within the forest context and the color of your building. It's just drawing your eye right to it. So I'm just wondering if you've considered that at all.
I think one of the things there is, I think when we talk to Paul about this, is because we're going to be using a lot of the boulder wall we're going to be using is going to be the natural boulder that we're taking out from the blasting area there, is to try to not make it too different in the looks of it, aesthetics of it. That's why we popped that little brown accent there with Paul, with those areas there. So we're open to some color on there. I know paint in those kind of situations always seems to kind of lose itself a bit. So I like Jonathan was talking about some reveal lines in there. And I think what that might allow us to do is maybe put in some reveal patterns in there. We have to be careful because structurally that can take away from seismic ladies, but I'll deal with my seismic guy on that. But that could allow us maybe some pockets of some linear additional color there if we have to that way. So I don't think that's out of the question for that.
Yeah, like where you've got the slats and alternating the slats, that helps
Yeah.
a lot. But then there's
Yeah.
still, it's a big expanse and being so light colored. Yeah, no, I understand. And I hate seeing the concrete painted. That's not an ideal either.
And we're trying to keep our maintenance to a minimum in the back area there anyway, and that's why I like with Chris with the trees, is originally we were looking at a reduction of trees beyond what we had to replace. I'm happy that we've got the trees plus some, because then we can really force that area up. And again, renderings don't always do it 100% justice, because eventually the trees are going to grow. There's going to be some height change there drastically. I mean, 100% if this was facing the street, I mean, we'd be in big trouble because we'd be facing a lot more conflict on that part of it there. But I think it'll blend itself out quite a bit. But again, we're trying to keep people and our maintenance people out of that area so they don't have to go back and paint there, because then it disturbs the naturally growing materials that are in there as well when we plant that. So that's kind of our reasoning for that. It's not saying it's the end of it all, but that's kind of our logic that we came back for our sake is for the building.
Okay, well, I don't know that we need to make it any, a recommendation or anything, but I think we've all discussed it.
Okay.
We see the situation, and it sounds like you guys are thinking about it, and I think that's you're going to do the best you can with it, I guess.
Yeah. I'm just going to answer a couple of questions or a couple of comments that were made. I believe it was, I don't remember the young lady's name that was in the development approvals table there, asking about the amenity areas. I think, Paul, if I'm not mistaken, we have about 3,000 square feet of indoor amenities, I think, around that, because we have an amenity floor on the main floor right off the lobby, and that's going to have like a kitchen and bathrooms for like get-togethers, parties, that kind of thing. And then we have, and that goes out onto a patio. We then have an amenity area on parking level 1 that also goes onto a patio. Would be a great little yoga patio kind of thing, because out in the sunshine out there, can't imagine doing yoga in a better place than the nature. And then we've got the forest lobby portion at the bottom as well too. So I believe we have about 3,000 square feet of amenity space in the building. So I think that provides, and there was a comment, Jonathan was talking about the tables. There's going to be a lot more added there. We usually do a lot of FF&E, fixtures, furnishing, and equipment there. We add a lot of that to the building after the fact. So we put together a budget for that to kind of put those pieces in place. And then, so that's the big thing for us is we were very cognizant, and Paul, I love the design on the north wall because the continuous balconies. What that does for us as operations as well is it allows us to maintain cleaning of windows, cleaning of ducts off the balconies. I don't have to have anybody climbing along the back side of my nice landscaping area there, mucking around with my trees, damaging stuff with lifts and chairs and ladders. It's all right up the balcony, so it's nice and easy and clean that way. So there's a lot of thoughtful process that Paul and the team has put together for this, for us that made this. And the name Silva is, we're very appropriate with that name for our building. It's going to be called Silva, and that means wood or forest in Latin. And we're very cognizant of that kind of choice. That was a very directed choice for where we wanted to go with the naming of the building too. So I really appreciate your comments, and I thank you for the time.
Great. Okay. Well, I think we can. I'm not hearing any objection to the variance as well, so I think we can support that. And that was Marta who mentioned the amenity space there. So. Was that, are you okay with his explanation of that, Marta?
Very okay. I actually missed the amenity spaces in the parkade. I just saw them on the ground floor, and that's why. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, so we have a few recommendations then. So consider using bird-friendly design for the glazing. Consider adding some aluminum slats to the east and west facades. Consider the placement of the canopy over the front facade. And I don't know if you want to articulate that a bit better than that, Marta, or if you wanted to leave that in as a recommendation.
I mean, it's just it's not really a recommendation. It would be something to consider. It just feels like there's two overhangs in one place. That's just the way I'm seeing it.
Okay. So if I just leave it, consider the placement of the canopy over the front facade.
Yeah, if they could take a look at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. And consider ways to reduce the visual emphasis. I was going to take that one out. Okay. And consider adding additional tables to the outdoor amenity spaces. Sounds like they're doing anyway, but we'll put that in. And so that's 4 recommendations. Any others that I missed? Okay, so if we can have a motion to accept the proposal as presented with those recommendations and support for the variance. Jonathan motions, Angie second, all in favor? Great. Okay, well, thanks for coming in and presenting today, and good luck with the project. Okay. All right,
Thank
we
you
have a
very much.
Thank
yeah.
you. Bye.
So we have a second presentation this evening, this time for a project on Turner Road and Lindley Valley Drive, and Christine Mays will present it or introduce it. Go ahead, Christine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So development permit application DP 1373 is for a 6-story mixed-use building with a 139 square meter commercial unit. That's on the corner of Turner Road and Lindley Valley Drive, and that one will be building A. And that has a total of 63 dwelling units, and as well as a 4-story multifamily residential apartment building fronting on Lindley Valley Drive, which is building B, that has a total of 43 dwelling units. On a separate lot. So that'll be a total of 106 units for this development concept. 6055 Turner Road is zoned city commercial center, so that's CC3, and 6045 Lindley Valley Drive is zoned commercial corridor, so that's corridor 3. Both properties are designated mixed-use corridor in city plan. The properties are located between 2 strata roads southeast of the Turner Road and Lindley Valley Drive roundabout. And the subject property falls within Development Permit Area 8, and that's form and character. And as such, the General Development Permit Area Design Guides apply to the proposed development. There's a variance that's being proposed, and that's to reduce the required side yard setback, and that's from 3 meters to 1.5 meters. Thank you, Madam Chair, and happy to take any questions after the applicant's presentation.
Great, thanks, Christine. And who's presenting this evening?
Hello, my name is Daniel Smith. I'm the architect on this job. I'm just trying to pull up my presentation here.
Yeah, you can share your screen and go ahead anytime.
Hopefully everyone can see my screen there.
Yep, that's good.
Yep. I would just like to introduce District, and Jessica is on the line with us from them, and she'll introduce the team. Maybe. Maybe I caught her off guard. Well, I'm Daniel.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, minor technical difficulties. And my voice is a little bit froggy, so my apologies. Yeah, I'll just do a quick introduction of myself. My name is Jessica. I'm with District Development Corp, who is the applicant on this project and the developer. And you may be familiar with our name. We've got several projects within Nanaimo, a few which have come to design panel over the last 5 or 6 months. I think my coworker Curtis was just in front of you a few weeks ago or a couple weeks ago. And then we had a project across the street at Turner Road as well be presented, I think, in the fall. As well, we have our North Grove project that's in construction. So we've got obviously a lot of activity in Nanaimo, and we enjoy obviously working in Nanaimo. So we are excited to move forward with this project. And with that, I'll let Daniel go with his project.
Yeah, we also have McDonald Gray, and we have Kara as our landscape architect on the line, and Newcastle Engineering Braden for civil. And of course, Glenn is also in the background if needed with the DHK. The excellent description of the site. I think just because of the complication, how complicated the zoning is and the addresses are, I just want to hone it in here. So building A is on the right-hand side. In the plans later, it'll be on the left, but currently we're looking at the street view here. So building A is on the CC3 site, and it's a Turner address. Well, building B is a Lindley Valley Drive address. Really, they're both on Lindley Valley Drive because Turner Road turns the corner at the roundabout. So building A is a 6-story, 63-unit apartment with the CRU on the ground floor. And building B is a 4-story, 43-unit apartment building. The neighborhood context, it does have 4- and 5-story buildings around. We are not asking for a height variance for this project, just the setback variance, and that's between the buildings, and I'll explain that later. But because of the nature of the zoning, the actually has a natural setback step down from the 6-story, which is closer to the retail stores in the Longwood area and towards the Lindley Valley area with some lower density to the 4-story. Again, this area is very walkable. To support the project density that we're suggesting in the area. And just to, there's many parks, there's stores, there's community centers and schools, bike path networks, and including the Mulkey Creek Path Trail Network just across the street. So now locating the 2 buildings on site, you'll see in the upper left-hand side is the Turner Road roundabout. Building A is the 6-story one on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side is the 4-story building B. The streets are Turner Road at the top, Turner Road roundabout, and then Lindley Valley comes across the top of the page. Turner Road roundabout has an on-site street that comes up next to the Dodds, and then on the other side there's a set of apartments in behind, so that is an easement on their property up towards that project. The parking is in the rear, and the access is to between the buildings. It goes underneath into an underground parkade. On the ground floor here in building A, you can see the CRU is placed on the far left side. That's to take advantage of the views, or not the views, but the sight lines to it from the roundabout, to make it publicly known that there is an amenity there for neighborhood residents. It's currently proposed as a cafe. The center between the buildings is a courtyard. The courtyard has the entries and amenity spaces of building A and B. The building, although it straddles 2 properties, the goal is to have the amenity room shared by both buildings. So one will have a kitchen and lounge area, and the other will have the main site office, and a gym facility. This is where you can see the setback. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but I'm just going to highlight around it here. So that's just the somewhat imaginary line on our property that comes through. Underground, it's all 0 lot line to the parking, but above the surface, technically this comes close to that property line, and that'll be district will have legal agreements for kind of combining these 2 sites. Next slide. As we come up, you can see the typical floor plans. They stack for structural and environmental reasoning. Along the outside, you'll see in the 3D sections, there's vertical elements to break up the massing and support the decks that come across the front face. You can also see there's 30%, actually above 30%, 2 bedrooms between the 2 projects. So as we kind of circle around the building, as you come from Turner Road towards the roundabout, you'll be able to see the cafe. There's like a plaza area in front of it. The building kind of expands on that first floor. That first floor is actually higher. It's at higher floor to floor to really give that commercial unit the space to grow, and the ground floor units will also have higher ceilings along that building. As you come from Lindley Valley Drive, the building is 4 stories tall and steps down towards the massing that is kind of more residential and park-like as you go down Lindley Valley Drive. The center plaza has strong elements to highlight the entries because there's 2 buildings, and the addresses will be kind of posted just to kind of highlight where those exist in the just off the courtyards. There's also the backside. The building separation and the height difference really helps kind of notify where the entry is. As you come around, you can see the vertical breaks that continue all the way up the building, along with the wood highlights to really give us a bit of pop of natural color, front and back of the building. As for color palette, we did go with a neutral and natural color palette, and we used blocks to kind of represent the units and separate the facade as you come across. Some of the areas that are viewed from further away have a plank facade. And then the areas that are right next to the entries and the cafe, we've used tactile materials just to really introduce that higher quality materials right where people see them. Along the front, you can see there's roof articulation to also break up that kind of straight line that you'd see from the street edge. As for the materials, you can see there we are using brick. We have some vertical plank as well along the CRU. Throughout the project, we have pops of the wood look materials to give it that bright, warm tone. There's some warm grays as well. And then the horizontal plank on the ends where you can see it from further away. Just coming through to the, I'm just going to highlight a couple of the things on the, you don't see many of the wood elements because they're on the inside faces, but you do see them along some of the vertical fins as you're driving down Lindley. The cafe kind of caps off on the end here. You can see it. And then on the other side, you can see the entryway down on this side is also dealt with a brick and the horizontal plank at the lower levels. Again, on the 4-story building, we weren't able to raise the main floor on this site because we were because of the zoning on this property, we were maxing out our height. But we did get some storefront and brick along the entryways and amenity rooms. I'm going to pass it off to Braden now for just run through the stormwater and tree management.
Yeah, so just a quick run through of the civil side of things. Civil servicing is pretty simple. It's all pre-serviced from previous developments. Stormwater management, the entire site's got a pretty consistent grade, about 6 to 8% kind of falling south to north. The rainwater is going to be captured within the parking areas, and obviously the roof drainage will go through erosion, oil water separators on site before getting detained in on-site detention. It's going to be designed with the fact in mind that all of this outflows to the Mullesy Creek, so that will be environmentally sensitive discussions going forward into detailed design. Yeah, the drainage is pretty simple. Site servicing is fairly straightforward. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to discuss beyond those points. Yeah, tree management, obviously with the site of this scale, with parking and buildings, there's not going to be a major amount of on-site trees that are able to be retained within the first phase. As you can see, we've shown that future phases, all trees are going to be retained for the time being. I think it'll be a bit more clear seeing the landscape presentation of the proposed tree replacements.
And with that, I'm going to have Kara do her presentation on the landscape.
Hi, thank you. So I'll be brief as well. The landscape plan provides screening of the building and foundation wall along the Lindley Valley Drive frontage with a densely planted slope and tight tree spacing. Most of the tree and shrub planting is evergreen, and there was a design comment from city staff about connecting the units to Lindley Valley Drive. This was explored but not deemed practical due to the grade change and number of stairs that we required to make the connections. Ornamental flowering, shrubs and grasses, and formal hedge planting and bike racks highlight the entrance to the commercial space on the northwest corner. And the addition of bollard light, the commercial unit, will also be considered. I think that might have just been an oversight on our part first time around. The planting scheme on the south side of the building focuses on screening the ground floor units from the parking area and headlights and softening the building interface with tree planting along that frontage. The plaza space over the parkade between the buildings incorporates decorative paving, raised planters, bench seating, and bike racks. Additional outdoor amenity areas can also be discussed with the client. Was also a design comment from staff. The parking lot islands are on grade and are planted with coniferous and deciduous trees and shrubs. Bollard lighting is provided along these pedestrian pathways, and overhead lighting is provided in the parking areas. The site plan as it is designed and the site servicing is extensive, obviously, and doesn't allow for the retention of trees on this phase. Thank you.
Yeah, and something I did miss is that the main floor elevation across the site is at 1.5 meters above Lindley Valley Drive. So the sidewalk continues along, and the parkade is about half sunk into the ground. So the grade does slope up to cover that concrete wall, only dropping down where our exit stairs come out to the street. With that, thank you very much for listening. And if you'd like me to flip to any slides while you're discussing, please just let me know. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, any of the panel members have questions of staff on this project? Jonathan, go ahead.
Yeah, I think in the design rationale, it talked about a covenant about underground parking that was going to be changed. Can you give a little more detail about that covenant and why that was there?
Sure. So we have a process at the City of Nanaimo and a council policy where a covenant's been placed on a property during a rezoning application. In order to amend it, it does need to be reconsidered by council. So that is what in effect the applicant has requested. So that requires 90% of the parking to be underground. The proposal is for less than that. And so that process is running concurrently with this development permit application. And so, I mean, historically speaking, there was a previous rezoning, and then this actual 90% was from a rezoning prior to that. So it was a bit of a holdover, and so that should be being considered by council in the next couple of months, weeks.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Daniel, could you stop sharing your screen, please? Thank you. Okay.
No problem. If you need me to bring it up, just let me know.
Yeah, I can't see everybody with it. Okay. Any other panel members have questions of staff on that? Okay. I just wonder if the applicant could clarify what's happening in the development next to that, like the proposed development. Is it a project of your own or somebody else's? I'm just wondering how the two projects are going to integrate.
Sorry, just are you referring to the remainder land that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that will be eventually our phase 2 of that project. Most likely a third building. Exactly the size of that building, the height of that building, we haven't contemplated yet because we've been kind of focusing on this first phase. But the intention is that that would be our second phase of development for the overall project.
Okay. Yeah. I'm just sort of wondering if it, like with parking, the back of that building parking merge with the parking of the current project, or.
Right. Yeah, we haven't, obviously, once we do get into the design of that phase, we'll make sure that they speak to each other, that it makes sense. Obviously, that portion of the site is smaller. So there will be a probably more percentage of that third building's parking will be underground versus the percentage that we have on this first phase. And so obviously, once we kind of get into the what I call master planning of the two phases, we'll make sure that they feel connected versus like two separate, very separate projects. We want them to feel like a holistic project.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Marta, would you like to get started?
Okay.
Yeah, we got some sound there. Okay.
Hi. So the building itself, I think the palette is very urban. We've done, lots of this type of thing where there's that bit of wood and it's white and the charcoal gray. It's very sharp looking, and in an urban setting, it's quite lovely. This is a very dense area of town. You can walk to lots of different places here and get resources. So that's nice. I don't really have any critique of the building itself, other than maybe the guardrails, because, here's the thing, the entire site is parking, and there's not a lot of places for kids to play, and the street isn't a good, so on the balconies, it would be really nice if the balconies were glass so that the kids' balls don't go flying out onto the street and things like that. I know that it's going to be 4 inches, but things are going to get tossed out, and it kind of adds a bit of clutter to the facade. That's my only comment to that one. But I think the buildings themselves are great. I really wish more of the parking was below grade so that there was an open green space for people to spend time and build community, because that whole area, the way it's been developed, it's all buildings and then surface parking. And then developers have been charging extra for people to use the parking below grade. And I think there's a fiscal responsibility, but there's also a social responsibility. And I think that would be really lovely to just maybe reduce some of the parking stalls or put some more below grade and give some more green space back. But I'll leave that to the landscape people to comment. But the building itself is great. Thank you very much.
Excellent, thanks. Jonathan, you want to go ahead?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree that it'd be nice to see more of the parking underground, to have a bit more open space on the site. The parking lot just seems a bit cramped, like kind of the end stalls aren't really protected by an island to be protected from turning vehicles, and some of the stalls seem a bit small. So yeah, it seems like there's just maybe too much being squished in there, and it would be good to move more of that underground if possible. And like the pedestrian circulation through the parking lot. I guess it's through decorative paving, which is definitely better than not having a circulation route, but I guess like cars are gonna be backing over that walkway all the time, so it might not be the safest circulation route. So putting more parking underground would just free up some space to maybe have a more ideal arrangement in whatever surface parking is left. I was a bit unsure like why some of the parking stalls have curb stops and some of them don't. Maybe could you provide a bit more clarification on that?
Yeah, so we've utilized the 1 meter inset for the regular sized cars. Where we've used small car stalls, we've added curb stops. This allows the landscape architect to plant trees right at the end of those stalls. I have to double check that I'm not. Yeah, so that's why they go back and forth. The curb stop ones are the small car stalls. The large car stalls just have low planting, and that allows us to increase the amount of landscaping on the site, because the car stall actually overhangs by another, I believe it's 1 meter. I would need to double check that, but the maximum amount that we can overhang the curb.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so I mean, it does seem like a pretty tight parking lot. You know, having to use the landscape as part of the parking stall dimension isn't ideal. some of the, thinking on the northwest side of the parking lot, there's like a few larger car stalls in between small, I guess it's probably better to group the small car stalls together just for people navigating the parking lot. And if you have a bigger car, you've got to go to the bigger car stalls, but they're kind of scattered about, so it's, I don't know, it just seems like it could be a bit confusing for the user. So yeah, having more parking underground might make that easier, or make whatever surface parking you have left flow a bit better. The building architecture, yeah, it's much more urban setting compared to the previous project. So I do think in this case a pop of color, some sort of accent color, maybe on the corners would be nice. This is a part of town with like a lot of these multifamily buildings popping up, and if they're all, black, gray, wood, they kind of all look the same to people who are new to the area. And it would be nice to, if you're visiting your friend out of town and you can say like, oh, I'm in that building with like the orange on it or the blue. But like, yeah, it's just, maybe it would help with wayfinding for your development compared to other adjacent developments if there was some sort of color integrated into the building. So I think that would help differentiate your building from the others in the area. Since you are a bit limited in your open space, maybe some of the sod areas could have some more amenity value, like, I don't know, a bench or something. Since they can handle more foot traffic compared to your planting beds. So yeah, maybe there's a way to take more advantage of the sod areas for some amenity space. And then the cafe commercial unit, for the patio, outdoor patio area, maybe use the decorative paving there that you have in between the two buildings. I just think that a patio area would be a good spot for decorative paving to differentiate it from the rest of the concrete on site. And yeah, I know you explained that on the north, having the ground floor units having direct connections to the street was challenging due to grading, but I think even with if it needs stairs, it is a nice benefit for the ground floor residents to have that connection to the street and that access, rather than kind of being more inward focused to the indoor hallway. I think it's worth it, even if you lose some planting and have to add some steps. But, yeah, that's it for my comments. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jonathan. Harry?
Yep, I really like these two buildings. They'll fit well with the existing buildings in the area and the proposed developments that are coming up. I agree with Jonathan with the color palette. It needs a little splash of color here and there. Material palette, I like that too. I like the use of the gray brick. Brick's not used enough in my opinion, so that's a nice touch. The setback variance, that makes total sense now. I agree with that. Otherwise, yeah, that's it. It's a nice looking project. It's gonna look good. Thanks.
Thanks, Harry. Angie?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, I really appreciate the presentation. It was great to kind of go through the building there. I think, like others have said, I think these buildings fit really well in the context of that neighborhood. And I think that they're cohesive together. I agree that it'd be nice to see some pops of color if possible to I think the variation in color palette currently does a good job to kind of break up the surface area of the buildings, but having kind of some accent colors to help distinguish the buildings from each other and then from the other buildings in the neighborhood, I think would be valuable. It seems like there's some good privacy between the units in terms of like the balconies. I think overall it'll be a really valuable project. I was curious, there was some references to the wood look plank siding. And are you able to provide a bit more information as to what material that's made of and durability of it?
Not really at this time. We just know that it can't be actually wood. So because of some of the setbacks and stuff like that, and the height and the maintenance of those things, of course, it's a rental building, and so it's going to be something that's very durable and long lasting because they don't want to maintain it over and over again.
Okay, sounds good. And then, and I may have missed it, but is it one refuse area for both buildings combined? Or does each building have their own refuse area?
Yes, so there is one refuse area that will be combined. The building is operated under one office, so it'll be one pickup location, just to consolidate that. And yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Okay, and then. I guess my only other comment, and it's just more of a question really, is on the landscape plans, it was noted that there was, I think it was about 60 Douglas fir trees that were being removed, and then only 9 of those being added back in. I was just curious, I don't come from a landscape architecture background, but I was just curious kind of if there were opportunities to add more Douglas fir specific trees, or if there's challenges with that on this site.
I would say it's pretty tight. So I did put in the coniferous trees where I thought they made sense. And deciduous trees generally, especially around the vehicular areas, because just conifers like to grow to the ground. Generally, I mean, they can be limbed, but ideally that's what. So yeah, that was the rationale behind that. I did hit the 50% mark on the evergreen species for the North Nanaimo area. So that was what I was focusing on for that.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe, I don't know, Jonathan, if you've got more background on this, but yeah, I think if there's an opportunity it sounds like that's kind of primarily what's there currently. So I think just if there's any opportunities to build that out a little bit more, then I think that would be worth just some consideration. But I understand the rationale you're mentioning there. There's some challenges there as well. But yeah, otherwise, I think it's a great project, and thanks a lot for sharing. That's all from me, Madam Chair.
Great, thanks, Angie. Alex, would you like to go?
Sure. So yeah, just looking at the parking lot, if you could answer for me, in between, it looks like I can't tell if it's, like, I know it's landscaping, but are those bioswales, or is it just like a garden?
It's just planting, dense ornamental planting. We had visited the idea of using the islands as rain gardens, but after the stormwater was investigated, it didn't work from a grading perspective, so it didn't make sense.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. Yeah, I think the buildings will fit in nicely with the area. I would also like to see just little pops of color. It could just be, on the trim, just to give it a bit more vibrancy and like for wayfinding elements. If you look at the buildings across the street and down a little bit, they've got pops of red. So just something minor like that, I think, could make a big difference. The one thing I'm also noting here is on the northwest side, like right where the cafe would be, there's a walkway that pops out. If you could maybe throw a bench there, some seating, I think that could be nice. Just to kind of like bring the people out a little bit. yeah, other than that, I think it looks good. I think it'll be a good project for the area and fit in nicely.
Okay, thanks, Alex. Hillary, you got ahead?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation and thank you to the panel for the comments so far. I think I'm on board with everything that's been added so far, especially around giving it a little bit of character in the color scheme to differentiate it a little bit. We see a lot of apartments in this exact colorway. Appreciate the note about the stormwater management on the site. That is, and understand why the plantings didn't end up working for that. But yeah, I don't really have anything else to add other than that, but I appreciate hearing everyone's comments and thanks for bringing this forward.
Great, and I think Hector, you'll have to go.
Yep.
Great.
Madam Chair. Yeah, I really heard the comments from Martha. I think the parking lot, it's not really working at all, in my opinion. It's very odd to have the ramp between the two buildings. It's just making just like the whole flow of the parking just kind of one way, and then you need to go back on both sides. So basically east, west. I have seen a parking lot with a ramp in the middle of a parking lot in a building in Coquitlam, and it's really bad for the flow of the traffic. And even as for pedestrians, it's very confusing. I'm an architect and I found it very hard to navigate. Poor of the people that they are not good with like reading plans, because they are gonna get kind of confused all the time. Also from a pedestrian way, I think it's kind of sad that these pedestrians plaza, that it's like basically the access to both buildings. Like at the end, it's just like a drop into this ramp with just like 1 feet of landscape strip basically, and then you have this drop. I don't think it's gonna look really nice. So and because they're asking for a variance for underground parking, I found very hard to support this design without the architect redesigning and the civil engineering redesigning the parking situation. In terms of the design of the building, yeah, I think it's okay. It's a kind of the building that is like bread and butter of the city. So I don't have any extra comments on it. Thank you.
Okay, do the applicants want to respond to this idea of the parking ramp going down through the center? Is there any reason that you're unable to put it, say, on the end of the building? Have it come in from another direction?
So the zoning doesn't allow the city, how do I put it? The city won't allow us to enter off the Lindley Valley Drive side. So because we can't come off the Lindley Valley Drive side, and the site actually slopes up from the sidewalk at Lindley Valley to the back side of the building by like 1.5 meters. So as we come up the road, it ends up getting very long. I think we could look at different arrangements for the parking ramp if needed.
Yeah, it seems to me that keeps coming up in all the comments. And it might be partly, the problem you're having with the parking lot as well. It's just all very complicated. And I'd have to agree. It's one of the things that sort of stands out as being a very awkward design there. So that's too bad. Yeah, I think that would be a really good recommendation to have, is that you consider some other solution to that parking ramp that would ease the sort of transition integration of pedestrians versus traffic and that sort of thing. So it might be something you have to work with the city as well to get that sorted out. So I think we've covered everybody. I haven't missed anybody.
Madam Chair,
Yeah, go ahead.
I had one more comment I forgot to mention earlier.
Yeah, go ahead.
Since I think it was building B is 2 stories taller than building A, the upper floor units will overlook the roof of building A, and I'm wondering if the designers have done anything to make the roof of building A look a bit nicer for that overlook. 'Cause maybe that's an opportunity for green roof or something else that would look better for the upper story units in building B.
Did the applicant want to respond to that?
We've focused our the way the units, the 2-bedroom units that are on the end there, all of them actually look out towards the street. The only windows on that side would be a bedroom window, and a living room window in one of the 2 bedrooms. But we have not looked at what the roof will look like. Although we do have mechanical rooms inside, and we will screen the mechanical rooms as needed. You can see in the elevations, there's actually a box up to allow for a room to be put on the top, which is allowable by the zoning. So we're hoping to contain it as much as possible, so it's not equipment sitting on the roof.
Okay.
Have you thought at all about having a rooftop deck, especially on that lower building?
I don't believe we can get a rooftop deck on, and the client is looking at doing, because these are rental, full solar to offset their electricity in the building. But we can't guarantee the full solar, so we didn't say it. So,
Okay.
but that's the plan.
Just to consider that too, yeah. Okay, well, we've got a few recommendations here, and I'm not hearing any issues with the setbacks. The main issue seems to be this parking lot, garage ramp, etc. In addition to that, we've got consider glass railings for the balconies. Consider reducing the surface parking and providing some green space, more green space. Consider rerouting the pedestrian circulation around the parking lot. Consider the spacing and size of the surface parking lot. So a lot of these things in the parking lot. Consider adding accent colors to give the building a more distinctive appearance. Consider adding more outdoor amenity space. Are you waving your hand, Angie? Oh, okay. Consider using decorative paving for the patio, cafe patio. Consider a way to give the street access to the ground floor units. If there's an opportunity, look at adding more Douglas fir trees to replace those that are removed, and consider adding some seating on the walkway on the northwest side pathway near the cafe, and consider another solution to the the underground parking ramp. So that's 11 recommendations. Did I miss anything, panel? Okay, not seeing any. If I could have a motion to accept the presentation as presented with those recommendations and approval for the setbacks. Harry, are you motioning, or you want to have a question? You're motioning. Okay, so Harry motions. Seconder? Angie, all in favor? Okay, are you abstaining there, Hector? Are you?
Yeah, I'm not in favor of the proposal, so yeah.
You're not, you're okay. So one against, all in favor otherwise. Okay. Great. All right. We'll leave you with that. Thanks for coming in and presenting today. And
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think that's it for our business today. If we can have a motion to adjourn the meeting, and not just a reminder that we'll be meeting at 4:30 on our next meeting on the 26th. So because we've got 3 presentations that day, so I'll just throw that in. If I can have a motion to adjourn this evening. Jonathan, and seconder Alex, all in favor? Great. Well, I'm not seeing Marta, but anyway. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Have a good night.